Episode 11 of the 9 Point Start with a Dream podcast. Hey guys, welcome to the 9 Point Start with a Dream podcast. I'm your host as always, and we go on today's episode we have Chris Butler. Chris is a physical therapist that's helping athletes, learn more about their bodies and how to be a better athlete and be more fluid with their movement. Great story, great journey, and he has some great tips for athletes, especially for baseball players, and a great ebook as well that you can go download. It's a great episode here, and hope you enjoy. So when you were younger as an athlete or as a person, what was like one of the biggest goals you wanted to achieve?
So when I was young, I was 100% convinced that I was going to play Major League Baseball. And it wasn't really until I got into high school and one of my best friends, he got drafted in the second round. And once I kind of saw how good he was and the kind of attention he was getting, I realized right there I was not going to be playing, much longer. So I played a little bit I played in junior college, and then I transferred to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo as more of an invited walk-on. And so when I got up there, it was kind of my first time really being away from home. I grew up in the Los Angeles area in Glendale. And so I went up to Cal Poly SLO, and something you have to fill out there is called the NCAA clearinghouse paperwork, which even to this day, I don't really know exactly what I was doing. So I filled out this paperwork, first time being kind of on my own by myself. I don't think I did what I was supposed to do. I usually had my parents around to make sure that I wasn't making any mistakes and that kind of stuff. So somehow I filled out the paperwork incorrectly, or it didn't get to where it needed to go. And so I became ineligible for that year. And I still kind of planned on staying in shape and training. But as the next year came around, I just didn't have that drive as much anymore to really, go again and continue to play baseball. So I just didn't pursue it in my second year up there. And then I really kind of lost my kind of like direction. So when I was going to school I wanted to be a PE coach. I really loved movement. I loved teaching people stuff, and I loved sports. And so that was what I wanted to do, teach PE and coach like high school sports. While I was going through school, I just didn't know if I was feeling like I was into it. And so I took a few years off from Cal Poly. My parents were pretty understanding about it. They let me kind of take some time off. And what I did during that break was I actually played in a band, kind of traveled the country in a really minor league rock band. But one of the other jobs that I would do when I would come back from touring was I would work at a physical therapy clinic, kind of getting hot packs and cold packs as an aide. And so once I kind of saw what that PT was doing on a regular basis, that he was watching people move and kind of designing exercise programs for them. They'd come in crutches, and then they'd leave, a month or two, a couple months later, running or getting back to their sport. So it was kind of awesome. And it was definitely the type of stuff that I was into. And so I kind of shifted my focus from wanting to be the participant in pro level or high level sports to somehow helping people go from being injured to getting back to that high level. So around that time was when I really got serious about school. The band kind of started to fade out a little bit, and I went back and re-enrolled in a couple of different schools, but I enrolled at Cal State Northridge and then a couple of local junior colleges. And I continued my degree in kinesiology with the physical education emphasis. And then I started taking all of the science classes that I needed extra to apply to PT school. And then that was where I really kind of found my focus towards wanting to be a PT and wanting to be a PT was involved more in the sports field.
Awesome. That's a journey right there.
Yeah, it's definitely wayward, that's for sure.
Awesome. So you had a big dream of going to be in the MLB. So you said like when you saw your friend get drafted, and that kind of made you think that you weren't there all the way.
Yeah. God, no, he was freaking amazing. And I was just a good player, but I mean, I was nowhere on his level. And then once I got in my senior year, he had people coming to every single practice. After practice, they would time him running, time his throw from home to second. And, once I got into my senior year, there was not even a letter coming to my door, let alone someone coming to my practice to watch me. So yeah, I knew that was it for me.
So you started focusing more on being part of like helping athletes get back to where they want to be. So what did that look like for you? Were you like always wanting to be, a DPT and all that stuff, or was it kind of like a different route you want to take?
Yeah. So once I kind of decided to go to PT school, I didn't have a lot of options. At least I wanted to get in right away because at this point I was a little bit older because I had taken the time off. And so as far as applying to schools went, Cal State Northridge was the only school that I had all the prerequisites for. And coincidentally, that was the last year that CSUN was going to be using that set of curriculum. They were going to change. So I really hustled. I took a ton of classes. Like I said, I was going to 3 schools at the same time, and I did a summer course just to get in. And if I didn't get into that, then I would have had to. It would have kind of been almost like another year process to take a few extra courses. And Northridge, at that time, back in 2004, there were DPT programs, but in California, it was only the private schools that could give the DPT. So everything else, all the state schools were master's programs, which is still the same. It's still a 3-year postgraduate program. There's just a few, extra things I think now that are involved. I think most of them are research-based and diagnostic film type stuff. So anyways, I hustled together to get my stuff in at Northridge, and lucky somehow I was able to get in there, and I didn't have to spend an extra year. So when I was in school, I knew I wanted to do something with athletes in some way. And, obviously I always kind of had dreamed about working with pro athletes or working with a team of some sort. And that was kind of just what I wanted to do, was treat people kind of like the way, I was doing as an aide. And lucky for me, in my last year of PT school, I ended up at a place in Pasadena called CATS, which is kind of a sports ortho rehab clinic. And also they do a bunch of performance training, adult fitness classes. And the setting at CATS is like a giant warehouse, like 14,000 square feet. It looks like you just walked into a pro training room. We've got, there's turf inside there, barbells, dumbbells, kettlebells, all the kind of stuff that you would not see in a traditional physical therapy clinic. So when I got in there, I was like, I got to get a job at this place. Like, I got to figure out a way to get these guys to hire me. And I was lucky that when I finished my internship, they offered me a job. So that's where I've been ever since. So I've been here since 2007. And I love it. This is the exact type of setting, that I want to work in. And I get to see a ton of active people, a ton of young athletes and kind of adult, weekend warrior types too. So it's great.
Awesome. So say someone's listening that wants to be a PT or BTP, what would be your advice on maybe kind of how to kind of land that first position out after graduating?
Something that's really smart to do is intern or volunteer, especially while you're in those in-between years before you get into PT school. While you're in PT school, it's pretty tough to do a lot of things because it's so demanding and it's almost like a full-time job in itself. But if you can volunteer at some places, get to know the people. Also, I think now, which they didn't have when I was younger, is just all the social media stuff. So now I get a lot of young PT students messaging me on Instagram asking for advice, and I think that's a really good thing to do, just to reach out to people that are doing what you want to do and ask for their advice or ask if you can help them out in some way. That's a really, really good thing to start working on, even if you aren't in PT school yet, or if you are still got a few years left before you graduate.
Definitely, because your IG is fire, man.
Oh, thanks, man.
No problem. So as you got into CATS, what are you kind of seeing a lot of maybe young athletes kind of not know or have like a misconception as when it comes to PT stuff?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, and I'm sure you felt this way too, when you're young, especially when you're in middle school or high school, you don't want to work out. Like, no one wants to work out. They want to play. They want to go and do their sport. Maybe I know I got into working out a little bit, but it was just to try and look bigger. And that doesn't usually last. You got to like work out to try and improve your performance. But I don't think a lot of people like to do that, and especially people hate to do PT. I mean, that's even worse than working out. Now you're trying to work out while you're in pain or something doesn't move right. So it's difficult. And the biggest thing that I see from kids is that a lot of them are so skilled, but they don't have the basic kind of building blocks of movement. And that's kind of where my background in physical education comes in. Because, when I was in PT or when I was in PE, the PE major, they started having us teach sports, right? So you had to teach kids how to play all these different sports, which I always thought was kind of flawed. You should be learning how to move in PE. Every kid in elementary school should just be learning how to squat, lunge, do push-ups, pull-ups, pick things up off the ground, throw stuff. And if you want to learn how to play baseball or tennis or volleyball, then go do something on your own out in the rec. But I think we need to kind of build, go back into the youth development and teach them how to move their bodies and control their bodies. I think we'll see a lot greater self-esteem with kids and kids more interested in getting into sports. Because a lot of times kids will fall out because they feel insecure about the way they look or the way they move. I've actually had some kids, or parents bring their kids in, and there's not really anything orthopedically wrong with them, but I've had them tell me that, look, my daughter, she's really uncoordinated and she has, anxiety because kids make fun of her when she runs. So can you help her, run better? And that's pretty sad that's happening to kids, but that's something that we should be handling kind of on their younger development. And that's what I see a lot of times with these kids. Is their kids will come in here and they can kick a soccer ball and bend it and curve it and juggle it, but you ask them to skip backwards or crawl, on all fours, or even just squat with a bar over their head, and they can't. And that's a lot of times where some of these kids are breaking down. They don't have the fundamental movements, but they know already how to do all these high-end movements, but they don't have the basic building blocks to support that. And that's kind of what I really try to focus on when I get kids in here, is try to help them learn how to control their body and have a stable base. Then they can do all your tricks and their moves and stuff like that.
That's so true. Because while you're talking, I'm thinking about in college. I was one of the strongest guys on the team, but I could not do hurdle lunges. I couldn't do the hurdle skip because my body I just couldn't coordinate enough. And I think what you're saying is so true. So how do you go about teaching that stuff from an early age?
Early on, I mean, it's unfortunate because PE is a lot like the arts, and it's kind of getting phased out in elementary school. And I've got kids that are elementary school age. And, they get PE once or twice a week. And sometimes it's not a real skilled person who's teaching it. Sometimes it's just their teacher who doesn't, they don't know, and it's not their fault. But schools just phase it out. And it's hard. One of the cool things we have at CATS here is we have programs for kids to come and just do exactly what I was talking about. It's just general kind of movement conditioning. Working on posture through running, squatting, and all that kind of stuff. And they get a heck of a workout too, but it's not geared towards sport specific. It's movement specific that should kind of just build general athleticism. I think that a lot of our young, a lot of our young kids that are playing sports, they're really good at their sport, but they're not that athletic. They're missing that athleticism. And that's what I think that's what we try to build here at CATS with the kids who come in, is general athleticism. Just be able to do all types of movements. And that's going to help your sport. I'm not knocking any kind of sport specific training, but we do need to be kind of working on general athleticism.
Definitely. So say an athlete kind of has that general athleticism, how do you advise them maybe on kind of doing the PT work that goes into progressing as an athlete in their sport?
As they progress through it, there's things that I can give them to work on at home. That's one of the reasons that I do a lot of the social media stuff, trying to give kids tools that they can take home with them besides just a piece of paper with some drawing on it that they're going to lose. And I'm trying to put out stuff that I'm seeing a lot in the clinic and that kids can click on and keep in their phones and continue that out and add it into their training. A lot of times I'll tell kids, look, all right, you're looking pretty good. I want this to be your warm up prior to practice every single day. This is how you warm up. And that way I know that they're going to be moving in 3 planes. They're going to be squatting, lunging. They're going to be on their hands in some way, and their body will be prepped and they'll be ready to go and kind of maintain the gains that they've made in the clinic and carried out to the field.
Awesome. So I know PT seem boring, like an athlete, we think, the persona will be like, I go there when I'm hurt. That's when I'm talking about PT stuff. What will be your advice to athletes that are listening, maybe that have that conception, like the PT should be for them, not just when they're hurt, but when they're rehabbing and everything?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I do all of the social media, to show what PT can be, and so much more than, just a bunch of table exercises or for old people or just a bunch of Swiss balls and pink and pastel colored TheraBands and really light weights. That's what I'm trying to put out there. And there's a lot of other people that are doing the same thing. And there just needs to be more of it. Let people see what can happen in physical therapy. It just has that stigma attached to it that it sounds boring, or it sounds like it's just going to be a bunch of fluff exercises or ultrasound or electrical stimulation or, so that's why I'm trying to put out as much content as I can to show athletes that are out there, look, if you've got an injury, I can help you out with that. And we can get you back on the field faster than if you just kind of ignore it or, don't tell anybody about it. I try to offer up free consultations to people in the area with injuries. That way I can give them my advice. Like, hey, you need to see a doctor right now. This is something serious, or this is not that big of a deal. I want you to rest for a week, do a couple of these movements, and then let's talk again in a week, and then we'll progress those on and then see where you're at from there. That way they don't waste time, making an appointment, waiting 2 weeks, not playing, getting frustrated. Then they go to the doctor and then they get another appointment to come see me. And now they've seen me, 4 weeks after. They should have just done a quick consult with me, and I could have guided them, a lot quicker.
That key right there.
Yeah.
So we're kind of gearing towards baseball season, like spring training about to start up. So what will be your advice from a baseball background for kind of ways athletes can kind of get their mobility going or whatnot?
Yeah. So something that I'm I've got here at CATS is it's called a Healthy Arms baseball program. And what the idea is with that is have kids come in here and basically do 4 physical therapy evaluations a year. And those 4 should be kind of around the season. So where you do a preseason check-in, an in-season check-in, a post-season check-in, and an off-season check-in. And what we can look at during those times is, their arm range of motion, what does the total arc of their shoulder rotation look like, and what does their general flexibility look like? And what do they look like with some of the basic movements? Is there some sort of restriction going on or some sort of weakness that could cause problems during the year? And what I do is design a program based off of what I find and based off of where they are in the season, as well as advise them on participation volume. Sometimes you get kids that are on 2 teams and maybe they're even pitching on both teams. That's where a lot of the problems that you're seeing in the major leagues with these guys going out with Tommy John surgery and all these shoulder and elbow issues. It's not a problem with the major leagues or minor leagues or the college coaches or anything like that. A lot of this stuff is happening, as they start to grow from ages kind of 12 to 18. Their bodies are growing. They're going through these peak growth spurts, which is where you can be at risk for some of that's where you can get risk for your injuries as an adolescent during these times of high growth spurt. And what can happen is these kids are coming into college with an arm that's more like a 30-year-old compared to an arm, like a 20-year-old, because they're pitching too much or they're throwing too much or they're not getting enough rest. Or they're pitching on both teams, or they're the pitcher and the catcher on a travel team and a pitcher on their little league team. So that's where I would have them come in. I'll look at them and kind of, let their parents know, your son's arm should go all the way back to the table when he's laying, on his back and he's missing this range of motion, or there's a big, gap in his range of motion rotationally, or, he's got really, limited hip mobility. This is going to pop up down the road. So here are some things that you can work on, on your own, kind of design a home program. Or I'll offer to them, if you want, then you can bring him in here and they can kind of run through the home program in the clinic. Sometimes getting people to do stuff at home is difficult, but that's kind of the idea, that we can try and maintain these kids' health throughout the season. That way they're not running into issues, when they do get into the college or higher level, or even just when they're younger. I mean, I see as baseball season comes in, a bunch of kids, 13, 14 years old, with kind of the leaguer's elbow or the leaguer's shoulder, where the apophysitis, where the bone starts to kind of get flared up, where the tendons are inserting on there and pulling on it, and it gets all fired up. So that's the kind of things that I want to try and prevent, or at least reduce the occurrence of those things.
Wow, that's awesome. So you're saying there's a lot of kids that have a 30-year-old arm, but they're like 18 and 19.
Yeah, I mean that might be exaggerating a little bit, but they're essentially they are. Their arms, are much more worn down than back in the times like when Nolan Ryan was 20. Nolan Ryan was probably playing a couple different sports and doing other things in the off season. He wasn't going to a private pitching coach and playing on travel teams and playing on 2 teams all year round. Those old timers, a lot of them played 3 sports and they were just really good at baseball, or they were playing baseball and then working out in the, farm, the rest of the year. But now kids are just getting so specialized and they're overscheduled, and like I said, they've got a personal pitching coach, they've got a hitting coach, they've got 2 teams, and they're playing year round, and they're not playing any other sports to develop that athleticism or to give certain movements a break.
Okay, gotcha. So I've been kind of workshopping up a little bit, social media wise and website. Where can people kind of find more about you and what you're up to?
So you can go. My Instagram is by far the most my most active account. So if people do want to message me, you can message me through direct message on Instagram, which is @CButlerSportsPT. And then I have a website, which is chrisbutlersportspt.com. You can learn more about the Healthy Arms program. There's a tab for that. And then, I try to put up blog posts that are, either things that I'm seeing a lot in the clinic or things that I'm curious about or I want to learn about. I took 5 students last year. And so instead of having them do in-services, I had each one of them write a blog every week or 2, pick out an interesting topic for them and have them, write up a little something just to kind of, like I said, make people more aware of physical therapy. What is it? What can it do? And let people know that it's different than you might be thinking. So those are probably the 2 best places to find me. I have a Twitter and a Facebook page. If you just type in Chris Butler Sports PT, I'm sure they'll pop up somewhere in there.
Awesome. And definitely you have the baseball program. So people in Pasadena, California area, they can go check you out that way too.
Yep. Yeah. You can just, you can call, like I said, message me, or you can call up the phone number at CATS, which I've got all that information on the website there. And we can set up kind of an evaluation and talk a little bit about it.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Chris, taking the time to do this and kind of share your knowledge. And I think, we need to kind of make it so where people can, learn about the industry and how it really helps them. So
yeah, Jacoby, was awesome, man. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the Cali life and have a good one. Thanks for checking out this episode of the 9 Point Startup with a Dream podcast. I was your host, Jacoby Gillum. If you enjoyed this episode, please comment, share, leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can check out more about what we're doing with 9 Point at 9point.com. Till the next episode, talk to you soon.